Welcome to Key Factors Podcast, where knowledge meets ambition in the fast-paced world of real estate and mortgage. I'm your host, Mark Jones, bringing you the latest insight, trends, and expert advice to navigate this dynamic property market. In each episode, we dive deep into the heart of the industry, dissecting market movement, exploring investment strategies, and unlocking the secret to real estate success. Whether you're a seasoned professional, an aspiring investor, or simply looking to stay ahead of the curve, this is the ultimate guide to making informed decisions in the world of property and real estate. So grab a seat and let's uncover the key factors that make all the difference. Welcome to Key Factors Podcast. Let the journey begin. Welcome back to Key Factors Podcast, Real Estate AF. I'm your host, Mark Jones, and we are powered by ReviewMyMortgage.com, the largest index of mortgage programs in the nation. And on today's discussion, I brought along a friend that I actually started doing business with when I first got into the industry. A gentleman that is an avid Spurs fan and one of the youngest brokers in San Antonio. Someone that I very much respect. So without further ado, let me introduce Philip Becker. Becker, what's going on, man?
What's up, Mark, man? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been a long time coming to be here with you. And like you said, man, it's been great watching each other come up over the years. And seeing how we've all progressed.
Real quick, I want to throw up a picture for the folks out there. JC, if you can reference that bad boy real quick. How about that? Talk about young, huh?
We did age pretty well.
I agree.
Especially Skeleton.
Yeah, man. I agree. All right. So on today's discussion, I want to talk about you, Philip. I mean, it's been a journey, man. Gosh, how long have we been? 13 years almost now, 14 years, something like that. I got in the business in 2012. And when I had jumped into the industry, I met up with James Cardenas. Shout out, James. And he introduced me to you, up and coming rising broker. And dude, we hit it off. It was something that I saw the future in everything that you were trying to do. And it impressed the heck out of me. You had an amazing group. And I think the purpose and what you guys were building was something that was far ahead of everybody else, in my opinion. So if you could, I mean, tell us about that journey. I mean, briefly, I'm sure there's folks out there that maybe don't know who Philip Becker is. But if you could kind of just summarize, the in the beginning piece of that, and then we'll dive into it.
I mean, shame on them if they don't know. But no, I mean, I guess the gist of it, Mark, is I'm a really bad employee. Okay. So let's start right there. You never would want to hire me to work for you.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it kind of bred entrepreneurship. I've done a number of different things before real estate, but was always interested in real estate.
Yeah.
And I was bored playing poker with some friends one night in summer of 2009.
Holy cow.
And they said, hey, let's go take our classes at Sabor and see if we want to become realtors. I was like, let's do it, man. So I'm going to give them a shout out. It was Max Woodward and Daniel Paley.
Okay.
Daniel still owns Paley Realty.
Yeah.
And the three of us got together, our second class in at Sabor. We said, man, we don't want to work for another broker. What's with this 50-50 split that we keep hearing about? And we want to kind of do our own thing. So we put our three last names together and came up with Woodpecker Realty.
That is awesome. Yeah.
And the slogan was Opportunity Knocks. And I mean, we made business cards and like put together a business plan. And we went back to one of the teachers at the board that was also a broker.
Okay.
And we're like, hey, like, here's our plan. You know, we had a binder together. We're like, we want to start a brokerage.
Yeah.
Will you sponsor us? And he laughed and he said, no, I won't. But he said,
no.
He said, I know this other lady. Her name's Linda Stellato.
Okay.
Also a broker at the time and an instructor at Sabor. And he goes, why don't you take her to lunch? And by the way, change the name before you talk to her. So we decided to call it Keystone Realtors. We got a new logo, blah, blah, blah. Had lunch with her. She also laughed. And she said, Philip, you, Daniel, and Max, you don't have the real estate experience or the business experience to do well. You're going to crash and burn.
Wow.
You should sign on with me. For 2 years, I will teach you all of the things that will make you successful, and you'll pay me a 50-50 split. She had no other agents. no office, no infrastructure, but we hadn't talked to anyone else.
Right.
Dan and Max both decided that I was crazy and jumped ship and signed on with her.
Wow.
I changed the name to Becker Properties and went back to the first guy that laughed with us.
Yeah, so when you drop Woodpecker Properties, it's just Becker.
It's just Becker. Yeah, we could have called it Pecker, but that hasn't served me too well.
No.
So anyway, we went back to the first guy and I said, look, Keith, shout out to Keith Gideon. I said, I'm doing this with or without you, and it's going to be successful with or without you. Do you want to hop on board? And he said, Philip, I would have always done it with just you.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how it started. November 2nd, 2009, Becker Properties had its first day as a licensed brokerage in the state of Texas.
Yeah, man. And you were someone that practiced what you preached. And I thought that was the best way to mentor the group that you were bringing on as they were coming up. And being a part of that, I mean, you guys, it was like a family. I mean, truly everything that you did was family oriented. You guys had from Margarita Monday to all of the events that you had at your office. And it didn't matter if anybody else showed up. Your agents were there and y'all were having a good time and celebrating your wins and continuing to provide them with value. And I thought that was just so forward thinking at the time, because I didn't obviously knew in the business, hadn't seen anything like that.
Well, I think a really important thing that we all know, but we sometimes forget, is that iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And, because I didn't work somewhere else, I didn't have a clue what to do.
Right.
But on the positive side, I didn't have any bad habits.
True.
Either.
True. That's a good point.
So I learned, like, from getting involved with YPN at Sabor when it first started, I learned from all these different young realtors at all the different companies what I liked and what I didn't like, and kind of put that together to make Becker Properties.
Yeah.
And we really care about the people, not just our clients and our agents, but also the community. And we've always been that way.
That's right.
And I think that, like you said, it served us well.
So you mentioned YPN, and I remember you were on the board of Sabor, I think one of the youngest on the board as well. Is that right?
I was. I think I started on the board of directors at Sabor in 2012.
Right. That was right when I got in the business, May of 2012. That's right.
So yeah, I don't know. They must have not had too many people apply that year. But no, man, YPN really helped me quite a bit, and in 2016, I was the national chair of YPN for NAR, which that changed my career. I mean, I get still over $300,000 a year in referral business just from other agents because I was involved at NAR.
That makes sense. Now, question on that. What were some of the duties? And I'm sure there's folks out there that are wondering, man, I'd like to be a part of something like that. And they still can be. I would imagine it's about elections and getting out into your public and your peers, et cetera. But when you were on that board or within that group, what were some of the duties? What were some of the things that you as a young professional kind of taking charge on?
Well, I think when NAR started YPN, it sprung from the 30 Under 30, which was a realtor magazine thing. Yep. They still do it every year. And I won that in 2014.
Okay.
But they were like, okay, we give these young people this award, but then we lose them.
Yeah.
How do we bring them in and get them to all these other committees? So that's kind of where YPN started. It's like an incubator for the next generation of leaders within NAR. And so like the duties as YPN chair on the board is really just to support the local and state networks, make sure that whatever NAR's message is at the time, that we get it out to those people, and then provide them resources to help their clients and, help their brokerage.
That makes sense. And in the beginning phases of your career, skipping the under somebody's mentorship, paying the dues, paying the split commissions, it was just you.
Yeah.
Then you decided, I'm going to start adding some agents to this group. I'm going to get myself an office and start building a business. What was that like? How did you make the decisions on who you hired? Were you seeking people out, or were they just gravitating towards you? Because, I mean, you were cool AF at that point in time. I can't speak too much about now. I mean, we're dads. We're not cool in their minds of everybody else anymore.
We still drive cool cars.
Damn right.
But No, man. It was cost prohibitive at first because my agreement with Keith Gideon was I had to pay him $500 per month
Mhm.
plus $200 per month for each agent I sponsored.
Okay.
Okay, so it's the opposite of collecting an office fee. I'm paying it out.
Yeah.
And so I used the first 2 years to really, like I said, kind of learn how the business was going to be built, what I liked, what I didn't like.
Sure.
And I did add a couple agents, but once I got my broker's license and Keith was no longer getting paid, that's when it really started to grow.
Yeah.
My first office was only because of my dad. Rest in peace, Randy Becker.
Amen.
He was a great person, and he had an office for his business off of 46 that was underutilized.
Yeah.
And so he let us put a sign up there, and that was kind of the very beginning of how
So
it began.
that office off of 46, that was your dad's originally?
Yep.
How cool.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
Orbis Online was the company,
Yeah.
completely unrelated to real estate, but it was more of an online business. We didn't have a lot of people coming in.
Right.
So it worked out really well. We
I
shared
remember him sitting in the back there doing what he does. And I'm like, okay, maybe he's a part of the agent group. No, he was running his own thing.
Yeah, no, eventually he was one of my first agents along with my brother.
Yeah.
And John's still an agent today.
I love it.
So-
And sister as well.
Yeah, she's an associate broker. She does, dude, she was showing a $2 million house the other day.
That's
She does
awesome.
pretty well.
Yeah.
So
And this market has its way of, man, I don't know, surprising us, even though we believe that we have seen it all. Like every day we're like, man, we've seen it all. And then a new surprise comes along,
it's like you're either green and growing or ripe and rotting.
That's a good way
So
to
it's like we've never seen everything.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about this business because like I get bored
Yeah.
really easily and then I turn off. But this is not a business that gets boring because every single deal is different.
I agree 100% with that. And it's funny that you say you get bored piece is, I think we're very similar in that aspect. I don't know if you have ADD or ADHD like I do, but I get bored pretty easily. So I've got to continue engagement of some sort. Hence the podcast, the videos on social media, constantly doing the outlandish things on the marketing side that keep me on my toes, so to speak. And for you, I think it almost came natural in regards to just the way that you go about things.
I'm unapologetic. I mean, that's the one thing I'll say. And if you go back to the beginning when we first had our video team, which was like 2011,
Yeah.
Jake started with us. A lot of our marketing was, edgy,
Yes.
to say the least.
Yes.
I can remember in Broker Underground, one time I put out a video and somebody commented, "Your incoherent rap videos are ruining this business." And I'm like, haters gonna hate, bro. So,
And now you've got, what is his name? Brad Scott going viral everywhere talking about shit.
yeah, exactly. So we were forward thinking a little bit in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think you in particular, along with your group, you were forward thinking on a lot of things. I don't think that there was a real estate group in San Antonio back then that had a wrapped vehicle, that had the camera crew and the ability to create content on the fly like that. As a matter of fact, I don't think that there's another real estate group in San Antonio that has a bar inside of their actual office.
And all that's still true today. I mean, we
Freaking
still,
awesome.
every listing we take, Mark, regardless of the type of property or the price point, it could be a $10,000 vacant lot
Yeah.
or a $10 million home or a commercial property. We send that video team every time.
That's awesome.
And it makes a big difference.
Absolutely, it does. It's the little things. And we talk about extraordinary and people throw that around, but it is such a big concept with very small actions to become that. Why? Because it's just the little extra. If you continue to do it consistently, wow, all of a sudden now you are the definition of extraordinary.
Well, that's the piece that I think the key word that most people miss there. And, it's a Key Factors podcast.
Hey.
Consistency.
Yes, sir.
Most people, they plan to do something, but they don't plan to try it for at least 6 months.
Yeah,
And if they don't start with that, they're going to fail.
I agree.
Nobody does their first podcast and becomes the #1 podcast.
Unless you have somebody that is super controversial. As a matter of fact, you're probably going to start your show with nothing but controversy, and who knows if it's even going to be relevant versus just clickbait all the time. So I agree with you on that. Especially with this road that I've been on. I think now, JC, what has it been, 2.5 years doing this podcast? This will probably be episode number 80 something. And you're right. I mean, it gets discouraging when you're at episode 50 and you're like, man, are people going to start tuning in? Because these are some damn good conversations. At least I'm getting something out of it. And in that aspect, and before we get into some other things, I want to ask, what are some challenges that you faced that you overcame back then when you were starting in the business?
Oh man, the toughest thing was people not taking me seriously because of my age.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Now this is dressed up for me, man. I usually dress like you, and I don't care.
Me neither.
But I used to have to wear a suit every day.
I remember a suit with boots.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I remember, and I'm not going to say this agent's name. I don't even know if they're still in the business, but I remember we walked out of a SABOR meeting on the board of directors one day, and she said, "Hey, Philip, the 80s called. They want their corduroy back." And I said, I thought to myself, bitch, this is all I can afford right now.
Right. That's true. It's true. But you made that corduroy look so damn good.
That's a lie. So thank you for that.
Of course.
But yeah, man, it was just, you had to work extra hard for people to take you seriously in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, it comes with age.
Yeah. So in that challenging phase, you being a leader, not only within your brokerage, but also to the real estate community back then, were there any other challenges other than the age piece? And that is a big thing because I faced that as well. I mean, that's why I started growing my beard like at age 1. Finally got here. But in essence, the concept of somebody taking financial advice from somebody that is younger, looks younger, hasn't been in the business, et cetera, long enough. Same aspect with you. You're advising folks right away out the get-go on listing prices, on what they should do in order to get it sold quickly, in addition to buyers and how to advise them the right way, the do's and don'ts, going through inspection reports, how to read appraisals. All of those things were just thrown at you because, let's face it, as a realtor / I'm the owner of the company right now, yeah, you had Keith at first to go to, but at the end of the day, I'm sure he was like, dude, figure it out.
Yeah, and you're right. He really didn't help that much.
Sure.
Not that he didn't have the knowledge. He was just kind of like, good luck.
That's right.
And that served me well. I'm glad that he did that. I sought knowledge. And I always, if I didn't have a client that day, I was reviewing other reports. I was looking at what other agents did. I was going to the board and asking questions of these other young realtors. And I was kind of a sponge in the beginning. And so, a little bit of it's fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
But also when you're dealing with the largest purchase or sale of someone's life, you can't really fake it. You have to know what you're doing.
That is very true. And I think maybe it was Aristotle or one of the philosophers basically says that we as humans are inherently, we're inherently like we are intended to seek knowledge. It is just something inherently in us that we are constantly wanting to seek knowledge. Curiosity. Yes. What is that? How does that work? We're going to constantly have that within us. And there's a big separation in those that allow those things to just go unknown versus those that no matter what, I'm going to find out so that I am a better person. I'm a better leader. I'm a better realtor, broker, et cetera. And you being one of those, what was the concept of making sure, what was the fire that kept you going in those instances when it was like, damn, I failed again. Now what?
I'll talk about my dad one more time because he was an employee. He served 20 years in the military and he came up a lot for who he was and the adversity he faced. But he also kind of thought that I needed to follow in his footsteps more in a way. So when I first started my entrepreneurship journey and I wasn't very successful in the beginning before real estate, he kept trying to push me back to a normal career.
Yeah.
And I remember when I hired Jake, who's still today the director of our video team, And I had to choose whether to pay Jake or to pay my rent at my office at the time, where I lived in the back of the office with my dog.
Wow.
And I would bounce checks so that I could pay Jake.
Sure.
And my dad was like, Philip, you can't afford this. Like, and I was like, Dad, I'm on the cusp. I'm going to
I
keep
can
going.
feel it.
I'm going to keep moving. And man, there were some tough years. As a matter of fact, there's probably an agent or two that worked for me at one point during my career, that people I still love, that don't work for me because I bounced a check to them when
Yeah.
we were 2 or 3 years in, and that's the thing. We didn't have financial backing.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have that. And
And
so,
people believe that as a broker, number one, you have all this money, and number two, you make all this money. And in all honesty, brokers don't make a ton of money. They're taking a ton of liability to get to an end goal eventually. I mean, and I think most brokers are very forward thinking in that aspect. But they've got to bring the value. They've got to consistently bring the value, even when you're not winning.
right.
Well,
I want to make that clear. Even to this day, like, I don't get rich because I'm a real estate broker.
Right.
That's not what pays my bills.
Mhm.
I think the main reason that obviously the perks are there, like the bar and the office.
Of course.
But the real reason I do it now is I can only help so many people at once. And so if I can train other agents to help other people, we can make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
And then it's EP, it's our logo everywhere, right? So it does over time help with brand awareness and help bring in more business. But the main thing is really just to serve more people and to help others be successful. And so, man, some years, on a good year, maybe I make 100,000 because I own the brokerage,
Right.
which is a seventh of what I make selling
Sure.
real estate. So I agree with you. Brokers don't necessarily get rich,
Yeah.
especially in a business model where you actually provide a lot of stuff to your agents on a smaller scale.
Yeah, no, I
Where like a nationwide brokerage, it's easier to provide things to everyone.
Yeah, you got more revenue flowing in. You've got more resources. Maybe you didn't actually start it. You inherited something, and you've got what somebody else built in their platform that you're leveraging. No problem to anybody. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from anyone.
Right.
But I'm talking grassroots right here, and that's something that there are plenty of folks out there that maybe want to do something like that. But I'll ask you, is it too late for someone to start something like that in this market, this day and age, with all of the things that we have upon us?
I would say absolutely not. I think this industry has been ripe for disruption for years.
I like that.
And now we're seeing it happen.
Absolutely.
The value of the board of realtors and the MLS is waning.
Yes.
And so there's opportunity for other trailblazers to come up with new models that will make a splash.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the word that you use is disruptor. I've been described as a disruptor in our industry for many years. And it's one of those things that when people ask me why, because it's necessary. It's necessary. Change is inevitable. So why not be the change? And as long as you are doing it intentionally and with good intentions, being number one, I don't see any problem with it. They're the trailblazers. They're the ones that lead the way and fail more than most to get to where they're trying to go. But it's for the better good of everybody, not just for themselves.
Right.
I mean, that is definitely apparent with you. That being the case, back then, you were like a master networker, dude. I mean, you grew your company, but at the same time, you were well known and still well known within this industry. How did you go about that? What was something that was kind of like, Philip, you got to go do it another event. It's time to go put your face over here, and you've got to speak at that. And what was that?
It was just a drive to come from nothing and succeed. Like, man, I mean, your why changes over time.
Absolutely.
And I know you've been there, but in the beginning, it was just like, I want to show these people.
Mhm.
And I want to show them with my success and with what my clients are saying about me. And I'm going to become this powerhouse independent broker. And I mean, maybe I'm never became the number one independent broker in San Antonio, but I'm super happy with where we are
Absolutely.
and everything that we've built. Now my why is just a lot different. It's a family.
Oh, for sure.
And it's growing that next generation. But I still will say the second part of my why is helping my agents do that same thing. And
Yeah.
seeing them buy houses and get married and have kids, it fills you up.
Man, you're speaking the truth here. And that being the case, your agents seeing you wanting to potentially follow in your footsteps or similar shoes to that aspect, you lead with and by example. Let's talk about the investment property situation. Let's talk about the first home you bought that essentially was a beautiful home, but intended to do what you wanted it to do and essentially make some money off of it and do that again until you got to the point that, okay, now I'm going to venture out, like out of the country type situation and get into this rental market.
Well, like when I first started, I didn't own any real estate.
Right.
So it's like, how can I advise these people about buying and selling real estate if I don't own any real estate?
Mhm.
So as quickly as I could, I found a guy to owner finance a piece of land to me for $32,000. I put 10 or 11,000 down, and he carried the rest. And I went to Tilson Homes, and shout out to Fairlyn Robertson. I'll never forget her. She was very helpful to me. And she was like, look at this young kid coming in. Is he really going to get approved for a house? And I designed a house with him, and I built it on that lot, and I learned so much.
Yeah.
Because when you build with a company like Tilson, it's not the same as, going into a neighborhood and buying a Perry home or you
Spectral,
name
yeah,
it, right?
sure.
You are responsible for getting that lot ready. And that includes clearing and having the construction drive and getting the electrical and all the other utilities, digging a well. I had to
Yeah.
do well and septic. So, it was a process, man.
Mm.
But when you go through those things at the end, you generally have a little bit of instant equity because you're not paying a third
You're right.
party on some of those things. I made 81,000 off that first home, which at the time that year was about the same amount I made in real estate.
Wow.
So I doubled my income,
Yeah.
tax free, of course,
Correct.
because it
You
was
lived
my
in it. That's
homestead.
right.
And then I turned around and bought what for most people at age 25 was an unattainable house, and I know you've done that kind of stuff
Absolutely.
too.
Yeah.
But real estate, like I saw the value in it. There's like, man, I made this 80 grand. Well, when I was buying that house, the second house, I happened to take a vacation with a buddy of mine to the Virgin Islands. And we're checking in at this little Airbnb we rented, and there's a realtor standing in the front office getting a key. I said, hey, if your client's not here yet, do you mind showing me this property? I'm a realtor in Texas. And honestly, I'm just interested.
Yeah.
And I had started making good money too. Things were
Of
starting to
course.
so she opens the door and she goes, hey, this little place is $99,000 and it has a private pool and it's at a great location. And I said, wow. And she goes, yeah. And man, this guy really just wants to get rid of it. He'll probably take anything. And I was like, wow, this is how they do business down here. So I went out and celebrated with my buddy Jared that night. And the next day I offered him 59,000 cash and they took it.
Wow.
And I've owned that for 10 years.
Yeah,
now,
man.
dude.
And VRBO done a great job. It's a beautiful place. And at that time, were you worried that maybe this isn't mine? I'm giving him this cash and shit, it's not the same as it is back home.
It was definitely buyer beware.
Yeah, I mean,
at the
I've
time,
considered buying in Mexico, Cabo, stuff like that. I'm still like, I don't know.
well, keep in mind, this is the U.S. Virgin
Right,
Islands. So the plus was like I had a title policy issued by First American Title.
Yeah, okay,
but they didn't have buyer agency down there, and they do kind of now,
right.
but it's not the same as it is here. So it's kind of like everyone's either representing the seller or a sub agent of the seller.
Mhm.
I hired an attorney. And if it wasn't for that attorney, man, it would have been crazy because the guy that actually sold the property to me with no mortgage walked with less than 10,000 at closing when I paid 59 cash.
Ooh,
And that's because two deeds that were not properly recorded came out of the woodwork.
wow.
That's the janky kind of that happens down there.
And I'm sure he was, I mean, obviously it's the seller at the end of the day, it's my property now, but I'm sure that's tough for someone like that that's owning this cool property. And like the agent told you, I'm sure he'll take anything. He probably thought he was going to make some money.
Yeah. Well, either way, I would have had that title policy, right?
Yeah,
Those didn't
protect
come out,
Mhm.
but it would have only protected me for $59,000.
Mm-hmm.
this property is worth closer to 500 now and brings in 75K a year in rentals. And by the way, I would never sell it.
Boom. By the way,
it makes good money. It pays my mortgage on my $1 million house here.
Yeah. And you also get to use it when you want it.
I love using it.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. So that question sprung from the idea of your agents that see you as a leader, and you are leading by example. Matter of fact, you do it most of the time before anybody else does. Is that something that's inherent? The tolerance for risk. Did you get that from your dad as well? Or was it just something that you're the oldest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So same here. It's like, I get to stick my finger in the socket first.
I think I got it from my mom.
Okay.
My mom was the one that takes risks. She started her own company in 97.
Okay.
Still runs it to this day. Very successful, not real estate related, but, my dad thought she was crazy too at the time, So I think he probably died thinking she was crazy. But she's just a very stick to it kind of attitude and no risk, no reward. And she's also someone that won't be outworked.
Right.
And I mean, it's one thing to work harder than somebody else, but really to be successful, you have to work right and work harder.
Yeah, for sure.
I know a lot of people that work harder than me and are spinning circles, and it's because they're not working intelligently or not doing the right things. And that doesn't mean they're not well intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the actual question. I think that I got a little bit of that from my mom, and also just a little bit of it I grew up in a nice area of town, but I wasn't on the wealthy side.
Okay.
But one of my best friends in elementary school was Josh Bookbinder.
Okay.
His dad, Russ Bookbinder, was the vice president of the Spurs. And so I would sit corner next to the visitor bench growing up all the time. And I met all of the greats because of this. And so seeing people like Josh and like the life that he had, I was like, man, I want this for my family. I want this when I grow up. And so, and I do have my dad to thank for that because he put us in those positions.
That's a great thing that you mentioned. It's not always what somebody does for you as much as somebody can show you or pave the way for you. No, they're not going to clear the trees, but they'll show you the way. And it's cool that you mentioned that because it's just not very many people have that, but there are people that you can seek out to follow, to emulate. And like they always say, matter of fact, I adopt this, you are as strong as the folks that you surround yourself with. And I think the younger generation don't surround themselves with enough people at all because I'm not seeing the aspiration in that aspect. But who knows? I mean, I don't know if I relate. I barely even tick or talk,
I mean, I agree with you. I think that you're the summary of the 5 people you spend most of your time with. And that's the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So now that you are or have had this brokerage for, goodness, how long has it been? 13 years?
It'll be 15 years.
15 years? Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious. What are your plans for the future? I know now, both of us, we've got our kids, we've got our family. Congratulations on all of that. Tell me about the transition as you went from primetime broker to family man Becker.
And life comes at you fast.
It does.
Let's see, 2 years ago, I didn't have a single kid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tomorrow, we're celebrating the twins' second birthday, and I've got a 3-week-old.
It's awesome.
It's awesome, but it does happen fast.
Oh, yeah. About 9.5, 10 months.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I think the core of who you are doesn't really change and like what your goals are. It's just who you're preaching to and where you choose to spend your time. I think every day opportunity costs is a big thing. It's a real thing, right? Every time you make a decision, well, there was a cost of another decision you could have made.
Mm-hmm.
And time is our most valuable asset and we never get it back. So for me, I'm spending more time with my family and my kids. And that doesn't mean that I'm not slanging real estate.
Of course.
It just means that I'm prioritizing time with them. And my perfect client. Every year I write down who my perfect client is.
That's a
Okay.
great
And
practice.
it's part of like business planning for
Yeah.
the next year. And that's changed a little bit. Now my perfect client is somebody that can go look at homes during the week and doesn't want to look at real estate during the weekend. Does that mean I look at houses on the weekend? Sure.
Yeah.
But that's not my perfect client.
Right.
Because I want my weekends to my family, and that's worth so much more to me than money.
Right. And I think that by you saying that, it reminds me to talk about the folks that want that life, want that prioritization, but have not yet put in the work to have that, in my opinion.
You have to put the work in.
I mean, it's not something that, now, if I were to ask you, hey, Philip, if you started off day one, and immediately started your family alongside the brokerage, something was going to break. Something was going to give. With you, it's almost as if you followed this path that led to the next thing that allowed you or opened the gate to say, okay, now you're ready for this.
I mean, it's like the movie Scarface.
Ooh, I like that.
First,
Yeah.
you get the money, then you get the power. And I'll let you
get
I'll let
the
you finish it.
bitches.
I'll let you finish it. But no, I mean, you have to have your priorities in line, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't start a family whenever the time's right.
Sure.
Okay, but for me, I just knew what I wanted to provide my family, and
Yeah.
I knew that I wasn't in a place to provide that when I first started. So, my wife Krista and I were thankful. We talk about this a lot. We're thankful every day that we waited till later in life to start our family because, man, with the twins, like we had to pay for help.
That's right.
Like we just had to. And we wouldn't have been able to do that. We would have struggled.
Yeah.
And these kids, they eat really well. They go to a really nice school. They're fly. You should see the way they dress, bro. They dress nicer than us for sure.
That's awesome.
But again, it's funny because if you would have asked me this 6 years ago,
Yeah.
it would have been a completely different.
I'm sure.
I'd say, you want to catch a plane to the VI right now?
Let's go. Let's go.
So,
Man, that's cool. So with your family life, is it tough to manage that at this point in time?
it is. I mean, really and truly, because you always want to choose them, or I'll speak for myself. I
Yeah.
always want to choose them, but I can't always choose them because I still do have to run this brokerage. And,
Yeah.
I've done other short-term rentals and even a development project in Port Aransas that we haven't talked about yet, but that's been a huge undertaking.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
And like you said, it's a time suck or it is a time suck, but at least it's going to something that you believe eventually will pay off for the time that you spend.
correct, but also like time is of the essence
Mhm.
sometimes when it's like an investment or a development. And so when you choose to not put the energy in, you can miss the prime
Oh,
opportunity.
absolutely.
So opportunity cost really, really changes. But that's why when money is not the number one thing anymore,
Mhm.
it makes it easier.
That makes sense.
And money, when you have your priorities in line and you still, you take the next step, you do the next right thing, and you don't just relax, you still work.
Right.
The money will still come.
Yeah, that's very true. And setting up things that will continue to pay the residual is not a bad way to go about this life.
No, that's a great way. Residual income is the name of the game, man. I mean, if not, then we're going to always trade our time for money for our entire lives.
Man, that's a big concept right there. Because time is the killer of all deals, in essence.
Mhm.
And that concept of time in itself. Matter of fact, I posted something yesterday saying time is the most valuable asset. Yes or no type concept. And I maybe got a couple that said no. I didn't respond to them,
Mhm.
but I look at it and I go, ooh, I should probably unfriend you. No, but at the end of the day, it is more valuable than love, more valuable than money, more valuable than trees. Why? Because if you don't have the time, you can't spend any of it at the end of the day.
Right.
Um,
And that's where health comes in. Health is important too.
yeah.
So balance in life, that's one thing. That's another thing that I've learned over time is that you have to take care of yourself first, and you have to make sure that your cup's full, because if not, you can't fill other people's cup.
That's a great point. Absolutely. And the concept or philosophy of that in itself, I think most people out there may or may not understand, because there's a lot of folks out there preaching that and still preaching that you've got to have balance. You got to have balance. I'm one that believes in a different type of balance. It's called prioritization.
Mhm.
And if my priority is to get this project done, then hey, for this week, family's got to sit on the back burner. Now we're switching weeks and this is no longer the priority. I can prioritize my family up front.
You're 100% right there. And I think some people, when they hear it's about balance, they take it as like every day I have to have balance. And
Right.
that's nonsense.
You're trying to achieve an unattainable goal.
Right. And time blocking is important.
Yeah.
I also think putting life on the calendar first is really, really important. Like if
Yeah.
there's something important to your family or one of your kids, that goes on the calendar first and you work around everything else.
Absolutely.
But you don't get big stuff done without putting in the hours and putting in the time.
That's so true. That is so true. Well, Philip, that was a good talk about, or good catching up on that. Now let's get into some current events, some things that are going on. I want to get your opinion on some things.
Okay.
So one of the topics of discussion that is super hot right now is this NAR settlement.
Mhm.
You as the broker, about maybe 3 weeks ago, there was an email that you, as well as every agent, received. What was the sentiment? What was the next action that you, as the broker leader of your brokerage, what was your next move?
You know what's funny is like there's so much misinformation around this settlement, and there's also whenever big news comes out, it's an opportunity for clickbait. It's an opportunity for traffic for people. So you have to really be careful where you get your news. But I'm also going to say, man, I am not anymore. I am not the soldier for NAR that's just going to read what they say and regurgitate it.
Right.
But what I will tell you is this whole thing is absolute, I'm going to say hogwash, which is nicer than what I wanted to say. Commissions have always been negotiable. And for the consumer to say that they weren't aware that commissions were negotiable,
Right.
that's bullshit.
Yeah.
How many times did people ask me to reduce my commission? Don't worry, I'll wait.
Yeah, you're
I mean, 100 times at least.
Yes.
So they know that commissions are always negotiable. As a broker and how I'm going to move forward with changes that are coming in our business, man, my policy and procedures have said you have to have a buyer rep agreement before you start with somebody for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's not going to change. We'll start putting our offering of compensations on our website.
Okay.
And I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity right now to say that all Becker listings always offer 3% buyer's agent commission, and that's never going to change.
Boom.
We simply won't take listings if they don't do that.
And why is that, Philip? I mean, I know why, but from the horse's mouth, you being the horse this time, finally, not me. Why is that?
That's because in a listing situation, we represent the seller.
Yeah.
Which means we have a fiduciary duty to them, which we have to put their interests even above our own. So to not offer an offering of compensation that's going to neutralize most buyer agency agreements, we're basically saying this property may not be available to you, Mr. Buyer. We're making our net much smaller.
Yeah.
Why would I break my fiduciary to my seller by allowing them to do something so stupid?
Great way to put that. Great way to put that. In essence, it's something that sounds good when talked about, especially if you're talking to the public and you are saying it's going to save you guys money. But then when you apply it, it doesn't pan out. It doesn't seem to the math don't math.
No, I mean, here's the deal, man. If you go out and buy a house, especially if you're a first-time buyer without the experience, and you don't have representation, you're going to get chewed up and spit out.
I agree 100%.
And you're going to end up, a lot of people are going to buy properties that are going to be like that movie, The Money Pit.
Yes, sir.
Are you old enough?
Hell yeah, I'm old enough.
Okay, JC is too. All right, I love that movie. That's one of my favorite real estate movies. But that you're going to see more of that when consumers think that they can just utilize technology to buy a house.
Yeah.
Work with someone that charges $500. Like, that is not going to serve you well.
Yeah.
Now, here's the flip side of that. If I'm representing a buyer or any of my agents are, and there's a house that doesn't neutralize what we have in our agreement, there's other ways to make that happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we can already write into seller concessions for money that can cover our commission. It's part of closing costs.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing that can be done. I know NAR is working with the mortgage world to try to look at, especially with VA financing, about how we might be able to make some changes to that. And kudos to them. I think I don't necessarily agree with them settling the lawsuit.
That's kind of where I was going, because you used to be a pretty big advocate for the NAR and what they did for realtors. And I'm slowly seeing many that were in that mindset making a shift simply because you thought that they were going to fight.
Yeah, I mean, dude, they've lost touch. Like NAR, they need to file bankruptcy and restructure. Okay, that's what I really think. Are they going to do it? Probably not.
Good
But
old boys club.
yeah, I mean, their heads are so big. They're so full of themselves. And I don't hesitate to say this, even with the positions I've held.
Sure.
I'm the youngest member of the Realtor Political Action Committee Hall of Fame.
Boom.
Okay. But they're so pompous and not willing to look at what really will serve the members, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they should have fought.
I agree. I do agree with that. There's a clip, if I can find it, and I want to get your feedback on this. Let's see here. I'll probably edit this little piece out, but we've got President calls on realtors.
Oh, I already know this.
Have you seen it?
Buckle up.
Yeah, boys. Okay, so let me find the spot where he says it. I'm going to put these captions on: title insurance fees, federal fund. Ooh, it's right there. Right here.
God, it's been 4 years of Weekend at Bernie's.
All right, JC, you got that reference on there? Let me make sure that this audio is on real quick. I'll probably have to overlay this. Man, my eyes. I have no idea how I'm seeing this right now, but I am. Okay. You might have to take off one ear to hear it. And let's play. I want to get your thoughts on this.
Last week, the National Association of Realtors agreed for the first time Americans can negotiate lower commissions when they buy or sell real estate. On a typical home purchase, that loan can save folks an average of $10,000 to save the purchase. Calling on realtors follow through on lower commissions to protect folks.
So, what are your thoughts on that? And I'll read the exact dialogue on this. It says, National Association of Realtors, for the first time that Americans can negotiate lower commissions when they buy or sell a home. I repeat, for the first time that Americans can.
I mean, does he not remember collusion? Does he not remember the antitrust laws that are already in place? Does he not understand that commissions have always been negotiable?
Does he not remember the first time he bought a home? Probably probably.
He probably doesn't, honestly.
True.
But you know, it's just an embarrassment. I don't know what else to say. It's absolutely not accurate.
Right.
If anything, it will harm consumers in the United States. And I just can't understand making the biggest investment of your life without adequate representation.
Yeah. Yeah. So this whole speech and what he's trying or attempting to do here is to solve the affordability issue in America. And I'm just not seeing how real estate commissions, 3%.
Maybe we should stop printing money Maybe we should stop increasing the national debt ceiling. Maybe we should get inflation under control. Maybe some of those things might actually help instead of singling out one industry just because you've done a really poor job governing this nation.
There you go. I mean, I was doing some research yesterday, and I stumbled upon a report that showed the profit after tax that corporations have made throughout the years. Now, mind you, ever since Reagan, corporations have always made positive revenue or positive profits after tax, including Obama, including Trump. But when Biden took office, corporate income profits almost tripled. And it's got the chart, and you see it, and it's like through the roof. And I guess the funniest thing about this is the inflation that we're seeing right now, 53% of it is due to corporate profits, straight up. So essentially, things are being raised like your food at a restaurant or your, let's say, stuff that you go and buy at the store. But it doesn't cost them more to get whatever it is that they're selling. It doesn't cost them more to sell whatever it is that they're selling. And we're simply participating in this idea of false inflation, fake inflation. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, man, I think that small businesses have taken a really big hit in this country. I think COVID, was kind of the beginning of that. And I think when we stop supporting small businesses on every industry, every aspect, all we're doing is feeding that bigger corporate machine that obviously doesn't care about the consumer. It cares about profits. So I really think we need to kind of get back to that, working together and supporting other people that are trying to get ahead. And as convenient as Amazon is, I mean, my wife probably has made 3 Amazon purchases since I've been sitting here with you because it's always Prime Day in my house.
I can see it on the ring doorbell. There they are again.
But yeah, man, if we could find a way to sacrifice a little bit of convenience to help each other out, I bet you it would go a long way.
And mind you, ladies and gentlemen listening, this is coming from 2 people that are absolutely devoted to capitalism. But at the same time, we're not here to take advantage of people. We want to do it the right way. We want everyone to win. So when we bring up the idea of affordable housing and the solutions that we possibly can bring to the table, I mean, it comes from a good place. We want to see everybody win. What is your idea, or maybe some ideas on how to solve the affordability issue, let's say directly in San Antonio, or is there an affordability issue?
There is. I mean, when I got my license in 2009, the median cost of a home in San Antonio was around 170,000. That number is more than doubled in 14 years. So and then let's compare that to wages where they were in 2009 versus where they are now. It hasn't kept up.
No way.
So we've got to bring better paying jobs into San Antonio and more of them. A lot of the jobs that we're bringing in, we can tout, the mayor loves to tout about how many jobs are coming in, but they're not high paying jobs.
I agree.
And we need a little bit better educated workforce as well. We also need to focus on some of the trade schools because there's a lot of people that can do well and succeed going to the trade school route. Like, I didn't graduate college.
Same here.
I'm not, again, because I'm a bad employee, I don't conform. So it made me a bad student. I remember, I'm going to get off on a tangent real quick.
Go ahead.
But I was taking a business, what was it? Social and ethical issues in business at UTSA. The professor was Consuelo Ramirez. And I think she's got a lot of promotions since then. But I remember showing up in class on the last day and I had gotten an A on all the tests and all the projects. And I looked online and I had a D in the class. So I went up to her and I said, "Hey, why do I have a D, in this class? Here's all my scores." And she goes, "Oh, well, you didn't attend most of the time." And
D stands for didn't attend.
And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm paying you.
Right.
If I don't want to attend and I can get an A on everything, then I should get an A." She goes, "No, you really need to be here for this class. So you're getting a D." And I said, "All right, peace out, UTSA." And that was my last college class. But I do think that college isn't for everyone. But that doesn't mean that those people aren't still seeking out knowledge and can't become successful. And so
Agree.
like, real estate's one of those things. Mortgage could be one of those things. There's a lot of professional licenses that you don't need.
Oh,
a degree
plumbers,
to get.
electricians,
Right.
all of
HVAC,
it.
dude, my plumber kills it. I mean,
Absolutely.
sometimes I feel like I need to start working for him.
Yeah, yeah.
So
The discussion we're having almost reminds me of, have you seen the new South Park multiverse?
I do love South Park. I love the real estate one, but dude, with 3 little kids, like
Yeah.
by the time they all go to bed, like my wife and I don't even want to talk to each other. We're just like,
bye.
ready for
Night.
bed? Yeah.
So the idea behind what they were trying to portray, which they did a great job of it, is
They always do.
yeah, the idea of technology, not necessarily replacing people, but we get so complacent with others doing things that the generations to come will eventually forget how to do things like, let me fix this hinge on the stove. What is it? It's just a screw that I have to replace. No big deal. So he's got to call the handyman, which apparently in all of the United States, the men that normally would just fix it are having the same issues. Therefore, all the handymen now become the richest in the United States. Why? Because nobody knows how to do shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that movie Idiocracy,
Oh
and
my
we're
God.
living in it.
We are literally living in it. How
Yeah.
forward thinking was that movie?
Scary.
It was scary. Minus the buff president.
Well, one of my favorite shirts is I have a shirt that says "Make Orwell Fiction Again."
Yeah.
And that's really and truly unfortunate.
JC loved that.
It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Yes, it is true. Yeah, man. It's just, I don't want to be all doom and gloom on this stuff because there is plenty of good. And
For sure.
in my opinion, when you see changes happening, we'll call it the NAR settlement, is going to breed change. The elections is going to breed change. The affordability issues is going to breed change. What spawns of that is always opportunity. Opportunity for folks to step in and rise to the occasion, answer the calling, whatever that may be, that leads us to the next future, whatever, how to fix all of these things. In your opinion, what are some things that could potentially fix, or, I mean, they could be super hypothetical pipe dream type, but hey, if you don't throw it out there, what are we doing here in the think tank, What are some things that could potentially solve some of this that's going on?
I definitely think getting inflation under control is something that will make a huge difference.
And that being the case, inflation, if we look at the root causes of what is actually happening, and let's say most of it is this corporate greed, would it be too crazy to say, hey guys, at some point, we as Americans need to just stop buying that shit?
Absolutely. But it takes a movement to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know the exact quote, but it's like evil prevails when good people fail to take action.
Yes, sir.
And that's kind of where we're at right now is it's easy to just sit back and not do anything. It's a lot harder to take action.
Yes, sir.
And it takes a lot more effort, but now is the time to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
And as far as affordability, I think there's a lot of people in San Antonio trying to address it in the wrong ways. And again, when you look at it, it's these major corporations.
It's true.
I'm not going to say
No, we don't need to name names.
builders, right? But there's some builders that are coming in, and how are they addressing affordability? Well, they're building a worse product. They're building a small product that doesn't give a family an opportunity to grow.
Right.
They're building a product that, God forbid, a home inspector looks at it. I mean, it gets worse every year. The framing packages that I see, and they use all these engineered trusses. Half of them, they arrive off the truck damaged, but they still slap them up, and it's within their performance standards.
Yeah.
Not only does not address affordability, it actually sets people up for failure, which can lead to generational failure.
Yes.
So I think we're looking in the wrong places when we continue to look at how are these big corporations going to help us address this? Because like you said, that's not what they're trying to do.
Right. Right. That is not their motive. That is not their, when you look at the wins and loss column, the name on the top is not us, essentially, under the win section.
And that's why I think also like who you work with has always mattered, but who you work with is going to matter more and more. To work with the people in real estate and mortgage and business that really and truly are in it for the right reasons,
Yeah.
that really do care about their clients, neighbors, and community.
Absolutely, man. Well, I mean, shoot, this has been a great discussion. We're right at the top of the hour here. At this time, is there anything that you would like to let the listeners know? Maybe other agents out there, other brokers, maybe home buyers or sellers. I mean, this is your time to maybe, I don't know, give them some act right. Who knows?
Yeah, I love this. Thank you for that.
Of course.
I always say the easiest way to make $1 million is to sell shit to realtors. And that's because they'll buy anything.
Oof.
They're always looking for the newest gadget or shiny object in their business. And what I've seen over the last number of years is when things aren't going well, they're looking at the next brokerage or the next shiny company that offers me X, Y, and Z. My message to agents is that your brand, whichever brokerage that is 15% of your business at best.
Yep.
So stop doing that.
Yeah. Stop
If
worrying.
you're not successful, look internally.
Oof.
Work on your own processes, procedures. Stop being lazy. Do the business planning. Go out there and do the work. If you're not willing to do the work, you can jump ship as many times as you want. You're not going to be successful.
That's right.
And if you focus on just making money off of recruiting other agents, and that's what they focus on too, and no one sells any real estate,
Right.
there are no residuals for anyone.
That's right.
So residuals are the name of the game, but there's lots of ways to get them. Property management is a way.
Yes, sir.
Buying short-term rentals is a way. There's a lot of ways that we can do it. I stick with what I know, and so that's what I do. But yeah, I think that focusing on your business is paramount, and focusing on doing the next right thing, and for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And I like that. And to kind of finish this off is if you're having struggles with your business, your processes, if you're having to switch different brokerages to find out your right fit, I think you should focus on the common denominator, the thing that does not change but should be, which is you. I think Michael Jackson said it, and then Lil Wayne said it best, is the man in the mirror. Look at the man in the mirror and ask yourself, what the hell are you doing for you today? And what are you doing to make a change for everyone else that makes everything else better in your life? And I think those are powerful words, powerful story, and powerful journey that you've led thus far. And I'm excited to continue to see this journey and continue to be a part of what you're doing, man. It's an honor and a privilege to know you as a friend and to have been a part of the beginning of what is to come, because I know you are not done, sir.
Not even close. And thank you for having me. And I think we should end this with a good "Go Spurs Go."
Boom. I agree. We're all Spurs fans here. Matter of fact, we got JC in the background. We still contribute to the cause in our, what is it? It's now the Frost Center real estate packages. So definitely 1, 2, 3,
Go Spurs Go.
Real estate and mortgage. I'm your host, Mark Jones, bringing you the latest insight, trends, and expert advice to navigate this dynamic property market. In each episode, we dive deep into the heart of the industry, dissecting market movement, exploring investment strategies, and unlocking the secret to real estate success. Whether you're a seasoned professional, an aspiring investor, or simply looking to stay ahead of the curve, this is the ultimate guide to making informed decisions in the world of property and real estate. So grab a seat and let's uncover the key factors that make all the difference. Welcome to Key Factors Podcast. Let the journey begin.